an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering sex education, Season 1, Episode 8, the season finale. In this episode, I was right about Adam. I will never, ever stop being smug about that. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode. Hey, Ashleigh, what's up? So, it's the season finale, which means that a lot of things have to either get wrapped up or get started on a new, what's the word I want? Arc? Can you guys hear that? I'm sorry. It's thunderstorming where I am. And there's something about Texas thunderstorms that feel like they're taking place 4 feet above your head. I don't know what it is, but it is just the kind of proximity that I have never experienced in any other place. And I have been in mountains and whatnot during thunderstorms. Nothing has been like fucking Texas. Anyway, so there are a variety of things to cover here. I'm going to start off with Eric and Adam, just because I'm so excited about it, but also super sad. And also not entirely sure how I feel about it. Like, I'm excited on one hand, and on the other hand, I'm like... So, it turns out that Adam either is bi, or gay, queer. He's just queer. And perhaps has been, like, that's been something that he has been struggling with for a minute. It feels like he has been mildly aware of this. I thought that there was something up with this, you know? And he and Eric are both assigned to the same detention. And it is, like, starts off in the way that you would sort of expect, where Adam just sits back and demands that Eric does everything. And my excitement definitely was, oh my God, they're being left alone together in a situation where neither of them can leave. We are about to have it out. And as soon as they start rolling around on the floor, I was like, oh my God. Now, the reason I say I don't know how I feel about it is because it's real weird to have somebody who's been, like, physically abusive, like Adam has been, suddenly be a person's love interest. And it's the kind of thing that, like, it's problematic. However, it's also incredibly fucking hot in that scene. Like, the chemistry between the two of them is insane. And I just was sort of, like, really feeling guilty because I was like, oh my God, I am so into this. And also, I kind of hate it. And I don't know how to feel. It's just one of those things. It comes up all the time in, like, fan fiction and, like, just doing stuff that's a little bit cringy, but also you're kind of like eyeballs, you know? So yeah, I'm just really sort of about it. And I don't love him, on the one hand, sort of seeming to, like, be using Eric and then immediately threatening him after. But also when they sit next to each other in chemistry and there's literal chemistry, I was squeeing. I can't lie. Their hands, like, being right up against each other. This is like Bella and Edward when the lights get turned off for the movie kind of scene, where it's just that sort of hyper aware thing that can happen when you are super into a person that you can tell is into you. And it just made me feel things. So Rowan says, I get being weirded out by the homophobic bully is actually a queer trope. It can end up shading into the unfortunate territory. We are our own oppressors. Yeah. But also everyone loves enemies to lovers trope. Right. And, like, it's one thing when it's enemies to lovers in the, like, playful catty way that we often do in romantic comedies. But, like, he was literally assaulting Eric in the hall, you know? It was just such a weird but you know, like, I'm also sort of into it. I really am. And the whole, Eric asks him, because he starts to really just get shitty and throw stuff at Eric. And Eric says, were you born a bully, or are you one because your dad's one? Which I sort of loved, because he's confronting Adam with, you're turning into your dad. It's a very different kind of bully, but like, you're doing the same garbage. And he's also signaling to Eric that he realizes that his father's a bully. So it's a sort of like, I'm on your side, but also you are being a shit, which is a very neat sentence. That's a lot to pack into a question, you know? And that's when Adam says, what do you know about it? And gets up and begins to shove Eric, who shoves him back. Eventually, he's like on top of Eric and has him pinned down. Eric can't move and spits in his face, which props. And then Adam spits him back in his face. And there's this long pause. And Eric says, how do you like it? Or Adam says that. And Eric says, I don't. And Adam says, yeah, I didn't think so. Or that's what I thought. Or something like that. It's a weird moment to proceed making out. But they do. And then it's like immediate. Adam immediately transitions from making out to giving you a blowjob right now on the band room floor. Which, you know what? As somebody who had sex in my school building many times in many different rooms, I can't even be mad. Go you, you know? I think a lot of faculty would be shocked if they actually found out how many rooms various students had sex in. I think that they would probably be upset over it. But yeah, so like I said, this results in them being in chemistry together. I love the next day when Otis just asks Eric, how was detention? And Eric basically does the Han Solo, like, everything normal, how are you? Like, it was totally fine. What? It was just a regular detention. There wasn't anything unusual about it at all. It was extremely ordinary detention. Okay. Calm down. So, when they are next to each other, it's like, Adam doesn't want to make eye contact when he sits down, but then his like leg is rubbing against Eric's leg and his hand is pressed against his hand, and it's just so great. Oh my God. And then Adam heads home. He had slept at school, by the way. After getting in the fight with his dad. So the opening of his whole thing is him getting home and his dad having stayed up all night. And I was just thinking about like the military school thing. But then when everything happened with Eric, I forgot about it. So Adam's heading home and he finds his mom's dog, Madam, and is like, oh shit. And you could tell that there's a sort of, maybe this will make them less mad at me, like thing going on in his head. But he goes in and there is already a man from the army school. Like, I don't know what to call this guy. But he is in the living room waiting for him. And so later on, Eric cycles past his house and sees Adam getting into a car with somebody who is not his dad. And it's pretty obvious, like, shit's not great. It's not clear exactly what's happening. But you can figure it out. And it's so sad because, like, they don't know each other well enough for Eric to go up to him and be like, what's happening? Even though Eric got a blowjob from this guy. Like, they should know each other well enough when you have, like, but, you know, that's how it goes sometimes. I got a text the day after sleeping with a guy who I met at a club on my birthday. Did not get the guy's name. And he texted me out of nowhere. And I didn't have him in my phone. And I just was like, who is this? And he said, Mark. And I was like, Mark? And he had to be like, the guy from the club. And I was like, Oh! Had no idea. Sorry, Mark. But yeah, so he can't go up and ask what's going on. And him and Adam just share this look before he gets packed into the car. And I am super curious what the fuck is going to happen, because I'm assuming that means that he lives, like, it's a boarding school, right? And when will they see each other again? And what way does Adam have to even contact Eric? It doesn't seem like they've exchanged phone numbers or anything. What happens now? So that's the whole thing going on with Eric. Oh, I forgot to mention too, the start of the episode is like everybody getting ready for their day, and we see Eric jerking off, and he holds one foot out from the bed and it shakes like wildly, and it was hilarious. I really want to know if these actors are like, I'm going to imitate myself masturbating. I'm going to like do what I do, and because that's what I know, and that's what I'll have this character. Or are they like, I'm going to add a flair because I think this character would be like that. So is the actor portraying Eric like, well, Eric's pretty extra, so I'm going to have him be extra even during masturbation, and have him just like fluttering a foot like wildly off to the side like he's a ballerina. But anyway, so that's everything with Eric. And then we have the whole thing that's going on with Maeve, which I just hate. I hate all of it. There's one bright spot, and that's Amy. And thank God for that. I was actually pretty pleased with this choice, because to jump ahead, what happens with Maeve is that there wind up being no men in her life. She is still into Otis, as it turns out. She has been like feeling a thing for him, but by the end, Otis is with Ola, which don't like it, but there it is. Jackson realizes that she's into Otis, and also that she does not love him. And so he tries to like help her in his way. It does not work. And also they're not together. Her brother bails, but he does leave a message for her through their landlady, which is more than he did last time. And I need to mention, I don't know if I haven't seen it previous and just didn't notice, or if it's the first time we're seeing it, but the landlady's carrying around this cat named Thomas who has a little hat on. And it's just so good. I loved it. So anyway, she doesn't have any men in her life, but it sort of works because, like, Maeve, it's a shame to have her be the kind of character who doesn't have any friends. And there's a lot of that is the situation at school with the rumors that have been circulating about her, but it just doesn't, you know, I appreciate what they're trying to do with her being a loner who has a lot of walls up and doesn't trust people. But I think this was a really good call to have her wind up in a relationship of a kind by the end of the season, but have it not be romantic. Because I think that's really what she needs. You know, there's a tendency when we're dealing with female characters to want to pair them off with a dude and have that be their happy ending. And that's often not a happy ending, guys. So giving her a girlfriend that she can just hang out with and confide in and be with, who decided to dump her shitty friends in favor of somebody who's actually a decent human being, that shows a measure of Amy's bravery and the fact that she has a moral compass of some kind. And I love that she like shows up at Maeve's house unannounced instead of like doing this sort of weird, like, well, I guess we're going to hang out. Should I text you? She just like is there. And she's not putting Maeve on the spot where Maeve needs to like invite her, but she's also like in Maeve's world instead of inviting Maeve to her world, which I feel like there's something in that it's a dicey thing when you're dealing with somebody like Maeve who is very private because she doesn't trust people. Invading their territory can be a bit of a gamble, but it's also, I feel like, a way of signaling that you're doing things more on their terms and in a way that you're hoping makes them feel more comfortable instead of inviting them out to your world where they may not be as comfortable for various reasons. And I don't know if Amy thought it through that far or what, but I just really like the fact that she is reaching out in this way and that things end with Maeve like coming back from seeing Otis kissing this girl. She's feeling really shitty and really alone, knowing that she's returning to an empty house. And there's Amy waiting for her to have a shoulder to cry on, maybe, you know, just somebody to hang with. And I really liked that as the wrap up for what Maeve is dealing with. Now, I jumped the gun a bit, but Maeve also takes the rap for her brother's drug dealing. This is one of those things that I am not entirely sure what to think about the writing of what she does, because my issue is, it's one thing for Maeve to tell them, yeah, those are my drugs, in order to cover for Otis. She also is covering for her brother because the principal is about to call the cops on her brother. And I say covering for Otis, like, does it count as covering when there's no, like, he wasn't actually even guilty at all and there's really no evidence he was even involved? But I don't... Oh, Ashley's here. Hi, Ashley. I don't understand why Maeve doesn't tell her brother what's going on regarding her being potentially expelled. Is it because she's afraid that her brother will be like, oh, well, I'll just tell them it was me and take a bullet for her? Because, like, I'm going to be honest, I like her brother a little bit more than I expected to, but he doesn't strike me as that type. And I don't feel like Maeve would be worried that he would do something like that. He's not willing to put himself in harm's way for her sake. We've already seen that he bailed once and didn't tell her anything about where he was going or what was happening. So for me, if that's the assertion, that she didn't tell him because she just thought he would try and, like, take it on himself and wind up in jail, I don't really buy that. And the fact that she doesn't tell him, it just, otherwise, I don't really understand why she wouldn't. You know, she eventually tells Jackson because Jackson meets her in the hall and, like, forces it out of her. He's yelling at her because she's lying to him. Everything is fine. When she was, like, just in the principal's office and you're leaving, obviously very upset. It's clear everything is not fine. But she doesn't want to tell him, and he has to force it out of her that I might get expelled for something that my brother did. And I really feel like if your brother shows up at your school dance and somebody winds up with drugs and you don't tell him, I'm about to get expelled because you did this shit that I asked you not to do, there is no reason to think he isn't going to go back to the school to try and sell again. Because she confronts him about it and was like, you didn't tell me you were selling, like, you told me that you weren't going to do this. He doesn't ask, how do you know I am? He just immediately is like, oh no, I'm getting a job as a doorman. And it felt like they just were... I wanted her to pursue that and be like, okay, you say that, but I'm about to get expelled because of this thing. So if you're going to be a doorman, I would appreciate it if you would actually do that and not get me kicked out of school, dude. So that was just like one of those things where it's a pet peeve of mine in scripts when characters don't tell each other things for reasons that are unclear or very thin. And there's just no reason that I can see why she wouldn't share with him that's what she was going through. Ashley says, I think it's more what it would change. She knows her brother and she knows he's not going to step up. So why add to your own stress by starting an argument? Like, it'd be entirely justified on her part, but I can understand why she wouldn't feel it's worth. But that's my point. Ashley, it's not just an argument. He could go and sell again. So her telling him this is what's going on. What if they, like, let her back in school and they're like, okay, we're giving you a second chance. And then her brother, not knowing that she almost got expelled once already, goes to another fucking event and is selling on campus and she gets pinned for it again. If you don't tell him anything that's going on, there's no reason for him to change his behavior. And I think that at the very least, if he knew that she had been about to get expelled, he wouldn't deal on school property. She's not even asking him to stop dealing entirely. I mean, I think she'd prefer that. But I just think it's like he would at least do that. I think he wouldn't go back to the school anymore and risk it there, at least for her sake. I don't think he would take a bullet for her in the way that I was sort of, theorizing. But I think at the very least, he would agree not to go back to the school. I don't know. Ashleigh says, I think she just knows he's not going to change either way. Yeah, I don't buy it. Like, again, it's too thin. I need there to be something that feels more concrete. Because I don't see that there's any reason to think if he found out she was being held responsible that he wouldn't just stop selling at school. That's just that's an easy thing. So it doesn't make sense to me. But in the end, like, what's going on with Jackson ties into this, but she gets in that, like, argument with him in the hall where he asks if she loves him. He had said, I love you to her, and I forgot to even, like, mention that at the end of the last episode when he comes to her house. And when they're in bed at one point, he tells her he was really drunk and he doesn't feel like she needs to say it back, but it's the kind of thing that he wouldn't have brought it up, I think, unless he was hoping she would say it back. If you said it when you were drunk and you didn't mean it, what you would do is never bring it up again. Especially if the other person didn't say it back. Like, you can just pretend it never happened. And you could even be a liar. And later on, if somebody brings it up, be like, oh, did I say that? Oh my God, I was super drunk. I'm sorry. I don't even remember saying that. But because he brings it up himself, I was like, okay, he kind of wants her to say it though, doesn't he? And it's really interesting to watch a dude character be the one that's like moving a little bit too fast in a relationship for the other person. It's so often portrayed the opposite way, And so when he gets her in the hall, when he woke up one morning, he found Otis's sweater in with her stuff on her bed. And for a second, I was like, why would it bother you that she just has a sweater? Like, they're friends. Maybe he just left a piece of clothing here or, borrowed it, which is what happened. But then I was like, it was like on her bed. That is a little different, okay, I get it. So when they have the argument and he asks if she loves him and he says, if you don't, just say, and she says, I don't. And he begins walking away. She tries to stop him because she clearly feels bad. And she's realizing, I think, that she's lashing out at him because she's upset about what just went down in the principal's office. And he turns around and says, I think we both know that you like somebody else anyway. And that sort of is, I think, part of what motivates her. When she comes back to the trailer, Otis has sent her the award that Adam got for writing the essay. I guess he went into Adam's house and took it. I don't even remember where it was, but he gives it to her and writes a long apology note that obviously does the trick for her, because you see her going over to his house and there's a definite vibe of determination. Like, I am finally going to tell him how I feel. And she comes upon him and Ola kissing and decides that this is not the time, which it isn't. And she turns around and goes back. And I feel really bad because Ola just deserves so much better than to be the consolation prize, which is kind of what she is. It's very clear to me that if Otis knew Maeve were an option, that Ola wouldn't be standing a chance right now. That's not to say he doesn't like her, but she definitely feels like a placeholder, and it's such a shame because she's really cool and deserves better than that. Deserves better, like the whole scene where he goes to apologize to her. We'll get, I was going to say we'll get there. You know what? I am going to say we'll get there. I'm going to start back at the start with Otis. But I really enjoy the way things ended with Maeve. Her defense of why she should stay in school and all of the reasons that she's really smart and how she defends herself. It's clear that she has never talked about herself that way. And the chat she had with her brother, where he tells her, no, you're like smart. I really loved that scene. It was like, it really characterized a person that doesn't know how to tell you that they love you and care about you, trying their best to like do it already because they recognize that they haven't been supportive the way that they should be. And how sort of like, it's sweet, it's a little awkward, but it means a lot to her for him to admit that he recognizes in her that she's smarter than him, that she always has been, that she's the kind of smart that could get a like better new life. And I just really appreciated this moment of her seeing, like, sitting across from this panel of people that she's meant to be convincing why she should stay, and getting to say some things about herself that I bet she hasn't ever really wanted to admit because she felt weird about it or maybe didn't believe it. And it's just shame the way that the principal decides to deal with it, because he won't say, okay, you're welcome back at school. He says, we're going to have to take some time to think it over. And for the time being, you are blocked from school grounds. And later on, Jackson comes in and says, I'll keep training if you let Maeve back into school. That's the deal. And we see him winning a meet. And he says to the principal, so Maeve's back then, right? And the principal just says, I don't take bribes. It's best if you just forget about Maeve. So I feel like the principal has a vested interest in keeping Maeve off campus because of Jackson. I had sort of thought his parents were going to be the obstacle, but it looks like the principal is the obstacle. And it hadn't even occurred to me, but that's fucked up. That is so fucked up. And I'm really interested to see what Jackson does, because he did this in good faith. He was just talking to Maeve about how he doesn't really know if he even likes swimming, or likes anything other than swimming, I think is maybe what he said. So he does like it, but it's like, he clearly feels he's doing this on behalf of other people. So he went into this in good faith, and now this guy has reneged on his deal. And I was sort of like, okay, dude, though, there's still more of the school year to go. Why do you think telling him, no, I'm definitely not keeping my end of that deal. I'm sorry, but Maeve is gone. Do you think that he can't turn around and just stop training now? Why would you think that? It would be very easy for him, in fact, to just not anymore. And you don't get what you wanted either. So what kind of like leverage do you think you have, guy? We'll see. But Jackson's like, he's so disillusioned, and I'm really curious to see what happens next season, because it's very clear as he's being congratulated that he has no connection to this win personally. He doesn't feel anything about it. This is for Maeve. And I will admit, I do sort of like the fact that he doesn't rescue Maeve. It would be nice in the way that, like, I want Maeve to succeed and I want her to be able to stay. So I'd take that in whatever form it came in. But I do enjoy that he is positioned to save her. He does his best and it doesn't work. And so there's not leverage that he can hold over her head, which I don't know if that was his plan, but I can't help but feel that's a little bit of a thing. Like, if they were to talk later, he could just sort of mention that he managed to be the one to keep her in school. And I don't know, maybe he would use that. I don't like to think that, but maybe. So if Maeve gets to stay, it's on her own merits or not, allegedly, unless he decides to kick her out just because of Jackson. But I really fucking hope not, because, like, you know. Ashleigh says, pretty sure it's a funding thing, and this is the one Jackson had to really perform for. Oh. okay. I don't know how funding stuff works. So it surprises me that that's how it works, but I guess things frequently work in ways that I don't think make sense. So, okay. But yeah, I just really hated this. Ugh. So, okay. Let's talk about Jean. Guys, here's the thing about Jean. Everything Otis says about her invading his privacy, being a hypocrite, it's all 100% true. I've been saying it. You've been saying it. We all know. That said, I am so not mad at her for hooking up with Jakob. At all. Like what she says about, like, you know, my son would never forgive me and he's my most important. She means all of that. I don't doubt that she means it. So when she immediately goes against everything she just said and starts fucking him, I know that I should be like, oh my God, bitch, really? But I can't, because that man is fine. He just is. He just has it. Whatever it is. I feel like this show has excelled at casting people with great chemistry opposite one another, because that's just a tricky thing. And there have been a lot of things I've covered that have a romantic angle and the characters just don't have chemistry, and I don't give any shits about their relationship, which often is a bummer because it turns out their relationship's kind of important and meant like a central part to things, and I just couldn't give any fewer fucks. Veronica Mars is really the biggest offender in this regard for me, which I'm covering right after this. But I feel like this show, everybody has enough chemistry with one another that it feels like there's really a little something there, actually. You know? I mean, I said it already. Adam and Eric, problematic or not, they have such chemistry. It's insane. I am devastated about the fact that they're being separated right now. Oh, guys, I'm so conflicted on that. The one exception I will say is, unfortunately, Otis and Ola. It's not that they have no chemistry. It's just that she feels so, like, completely out of his league to me that I can't get past that in my head to be like, you know, he's talking about how she's a house cat and Maeve is a lion. And I'm like, no, Maeve is a house cat. Maeve's like aloof, but not really. Like, she desperately wants love, but she can't be seen to actually be asking for it. So, like, when you call her, she'll turn and, like, look at you for a long time, and you'll think that she's not coming, but then she, like, slowly gets down and saunters over, but she tries to make it like, well, I was just coming over here because, like, the food bowl's vaguely in this direction. And then she'll, like, stretch on her way over to you, and all of a sudden, she just happens to be, like, somewhere near you that you could pet her, and it's really just a complete coincidence that she's here. That's Maeve, okay? Fucking Ola is the unattainable cool one. Are you kidding me? Like, 100%. What are you talking about? She is in a different stratosphere. They're talking about trying to put her in the school with them. No, Ola isn't immortal. She doesn't go to a mortal school. Ola attends some, like, nebulous private school that people have, like, heard of, but they've never met anybody who actually goes there, but they, like, know somebody, like, mom's friend at work's sister's daughter goes there. That kind of thing. That's Ola. And I just don't see it for her and Otis at all. And she also feels like 10 years older than him to me. So that's real. Those are like the two main things, is that, like, one, she's just so cool, and two, she just feels so much older. I feel like she does look older than him as well. It's not as much about that, but I think that is true also. Anyway, so the chemistry between Jean and Jakob is insane. I love, like, she actually does have a sink problem, and he basically tells her, you don't get to call me for just handyman shit. I'm sorry you don't. Like, we fucked. You said you didn't want a relationship. You don't just get to turn me back into your handyman. Bye. And I really respected the shit out of him for that. I really did. He could have just given into the siren song of his dick going to her house being like, well, maybe she doesn't want a relationship, but I definitely would be down to fuck again, so maybe I can get another fuck out of her. He doesn't do that. But he also doesn't abandon her. He sends Ola instead, which I think that's a pretty good move. I don't know, I liked it. But in the end, they wind up fucking again anyway, and I'm extremely curious to see how this shakes out, because if she's trying to keep this secret, it's going to be really weird, because she has never been secretive about any of her sexual relationships with her son. And he's going to be, I think, any indication that she's hiding anything on that front, and he's going to know what's happening right away. There's no reason for her to lie about anybody except him. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so let's back up and talk about Otis now. So the first thing that we see in this episode is Otis going onto his mother's computer, and he prints out what she has done of her book. I really didn't know what he was doing. I was like, is he about to send this to like a publisher to try and like get it rejected so he can like mock her? I really didn't know. What it turns out he has done is he reads through it and annotates it with commentary, which is honestly a boss move. That's pretty dope. I was a little bit like impressed, I gotta admit. It did not come to play. There is some comment that he makes, and I failed to read it because the screen, it was like too small on the screen. I'm going to see if I can find it here. But his mother like stops and she says something like, "It hurt when I pushed you out of my vagina too." And I was like, what? Oh yeah, here it is. Where it's right after he is told by Lily that he owes her. And then we cut to, I've been observing the subject at close quarters for his entire life, the reason for which is no doubt evident. The subject is my son. And he wrote "not very funny" and underlined it twice. I'm not sure if that's in regard to the preceding or the following paragraph. The subject is my son. Having consistent and holistic access to such a fascinating case study facilitates incredibly refined observations, which I'm able to cross-reference with my own extensive experience as an expert, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. What's the first one? Otis's surprise emission. Oh my God. I didn't even see the chapter title, you guys. This is so bad. Otis, who I shall henceforth refer to as the subject, is an unusual 16-year-old. All external signs of physical, intellectual, and social aptitude suggested normal development, but his interior psychosexual landscape is highly unconventional. The subject has never willingly achieved ejaculation. He is painfully averse to self-stimulation, which is most atypical in adolescent males of any social economic subset. In fact, one might go so far as to claim the subject fails to demonstrate one of the key identifiers of his demographic, to the extent that perhaps it could be said that he defies the very definition of adolescent male. And then the final one on this page: in order to preempt accusations of unconscious bias, I deliberately and consciously adopted an attitude of objective observer towards the subject. At no point was the subject aware of the fact of my observing him as a case study. I was careful to always keep separate my professional interest and personal relationship. And he wrote, "Really?" and then underlined professional and wrote unprofessional. And honestly, I just found that really, I love this idea of attacking her via her work and letting her know that you saw the whole thing. There, at one point, it just says like, "wow" in parentheses. And I just really enjoyed this a lot. I just thought this was an A+ way of approaching the whole thing. I really can't and what kills her is that she had submitted this already to a publisher and she gets a call back and they are super interested. So she's really wanting to prove herself to her ex-husband, and that's really the thing, right? She's still trying to prove something to him. Wrong way to go about anything, but whatever. So now she can either keep her son's trust and not fucking publish this, or she can get the praise and accolades that she wants and probably permanently alienate Otis. And I just don't think that there's reconciling those two things. I just don't. I think she gets one or the other. I cannot wait to see. I really can't. I really want to know what she does, because I want to say that she won't. But by the end of this episode, she's still talking to him about how she'll just change his name. She knows how upset he is, and she's still acting as if that is going to happen. The publishing is going to happen. So I really don't know what to think about that, So that's how things start with Otis. And then he goes to school. He's in a fucking mood, though, obviously, from this whole fight that he had with his mom. On the way in, he's telling Eric about how, exactly what went down with his fight with Ola, to which Eric is basically wow, yeah, you fucked up. That is really... I can't believe that you're as smart as you are and you still said some shit like that, you idiot. And then when he says something about how Maeve isn't talking to him either, Eric just finishes with, wow, women hate you, which was hilarious. Honestly, it really was. So he gets called to the office. He can tell that something went down with Maeve and the principal, but she won't tell him. And then he runs into Lily. So what happened with Lily last episode, which I forgot to even mention, is she sees this dude across the dance floor and just has this moment and immediately asks if he wants to have sex. And he's like, okay. And we have this great scene where he has gotten 100% into costume and into character for the fiction that she wrote, and is going to enact this scene with her. It's the best. I love this energy. He is here for this whole thing. There is no sense of mockery, half-heartedness, being weirded out. None. He is absolutely 100% ready to do this right. And he's excited about it. And I am loving it. And then she locks up. Her pussy's doors just slam shut. And she's like, no, I don't think so. And what the conclusion that Otis comes to later is that she is feeling too controlling of aspects of her life. And the fact that she had to basically direct the scene between the two of them and make it perfect points to her having control issues, and maybe she wants too much to be in control to the point that she can't let go for sex. So, quick story, not even really a story. I never had this problem until 3 years ago. And I've been having this exact same thing where it's my pussy's doors have slammed shut. And it takes ages for any penetration of any kind. I am just... And I've been working on it because I had thought, some of you probably have had this, especially if you've had kids. You have to pee really bad. You're running to the bathroom. You get in viewing distance of the bathroom and your body's oh, okay, well, we're at the bathroom. And a little bit of pee dribbles out, right? I'm thinking, from what I've read, this means that I have an unstable pelvic floor, that I need to tighten and strengthen my pelvic floor via Kegels. Turns out you can have a little bit of leakage because your pelvic floor is too tight. It can be the exact opposite problem. So doing Kegels makes it way worse and can also lead to this, which is that you can't have sex without like extensive foreplay beforehand because you're too locked up. So I have been actively working on like not clenching, and it has definitely helped with the leaking. Doesn't happen at all anymore. It's been like a year. But I swear to God, the sex thing is really fucking frustrating, and it's a lot slower to like clear up because obviously we're talking something bigger. It's a bigger problem, literally and figuratively. So her having this issue, I just felt for her so bad, because you can be mentally 100% here for the sex in this, just really in basic way. But your body is just like, I don't know, like, do you really want to, I don't know, you've got dishes out there and you got like 2 episodes that you have to edit, and I didn't want to tell you this, but you forgot to read for tomorrow morning. So you probably like, not right now. No. And it just shuts everything down, whether I want it to or not, because that's in the fucking background. So I just really I felt for her so much in this scene, and her frustration at being like, but I do want sex. I don't get why. Eventually they have a talk, and it turns out he thinks that she's got the same, it takes a while before he'll admit it, but they have a similar reasoning. They're just dealing with it in totally different ways. So he's really worried about being left behind by his friends also. He has his trauma with his parents and sex being hurtful. And he also is struggling with not wanting to be the only one who hasn't had sex. She's also struggling with that. And she's, instead of avoiding it, deciding to try to attack it head on, which does make sense for somebody with control issues to be like, well, then I'll take charge and I'll do it. Avoidance is also a control thing. That's different. But I really like the fact that they both have a similar issue. They're just very different in the way that they cope with it. This is just such a true thing in life. Like, Owen has depression as well as me, but we both cope with our depression in totally different ways. So he doesn't even realize when I'm having it because I don't show symptoms the way that he does. That's how it is in life. We all have very similar struggles, but the way we decide to deal with them, it just makes them look like entirely separate problems that have no relation to each other, even though they're definitely the same thing, Rowan says, I'm a total control freak, which is probably why I would rather write sexy fanfic where I control every aspect of every character's feelings and actions than have a relationship. I understand that. Yeah. And also, I have body image issues lately from having gained weight, and it's really difficult for me to get turned on when I don't feel like I look good. It's just hard for me to and that's me objectifying myself in a weird way because society, but I can't help that. And so that's something that I know a lot of people gravitate towards fiction because they are able to make themselves look any way they want in their head for that. And they can imagine that person having sex, but for them, they can't imagine being attractive to the kind of person they're interested in fantasizing about. And I've had this, I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll fantasize about, Chris Hemsworth. And my immediate response is Chris Hemsworth would not fuck me. That's not happening. Let's set our sights a little bit lower. I can't even fantasize about it because it's just so unreal to me. And I hate that. So I really understand, people gravitating towards either writing fanfic privately. There's a lot of role-playing groups out there. One of my friends does this. And for her, she is married and she does the sex talk with her husband who also role plays, which I find amazing. I think that's a very cool idea. But it's a major thing for people where they will be in these groups and they'll each have a character and they'll write whole fictions with other people participating, and it's an ongoing story. And that appeals to a lot of people because you can make yourself look like whatever you want. And some of those people do cosplay as the character they're role playing as on TikTok, which is what my friend does. She does several characters. They're all male. And she does these full costumes and has entire TikToks dedicated to them. She's got hundreds of thousands of followers. It's crazy. But yeah, so I can understand if you don't feel comfortable in your skin, or if you are maybe have a kink that you feel weird about and you don't want to risk being rejected by people in person, it's a safe place that you can be who you want and you can open up, and if people don't respond well, you could just bail and go somewhere else, you know? Ashley says, might be vaginismus as well. I've seen a lot more information going around about this over the last couple of years. Yeah, when I watched this, I was like, I'm gonna look into this, because that just felt like it hit a lot of notes for me. The control thing is like a major issue for me, always has been, but it's been worse for sure since my divorce, I think, because I have been like in more of a panic, you know? And now that I'm slowly becoming more financially stable and not feeling as worried, I don't feel that panic the same way. And so I'm able to take a step back and like look at it for the first time. Whereas before it was just trying to get by. Also never fantasize about me having sex with someone else. It's always just fictional characters. Yeah. Yep. I get that. Like a virtual swing party. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Like I said, my friend and her husband they role play with a lot of people in just fiction in general. But the only stuff that she doesn't do with her husband is when she's playing the male role. And when she's doing a female role, she only does the sex scenes with her husband. And when she's playing the male role, she said that her husband finally got interested in doing this with her because he was reading her fic written from a guy's perspective. And he asked her about why she made certain choices. And she said, I'm writing what I would like a guy to do. And he was like, oh, and started to pay a lot more attention, because basically she was writing a scene of like, here's how I would like you to fuck me. And he was just like, oh, well, yeah. And started to fucking take notes, you know? And that was why they got started on doing that whole thing. And I was like, that's a really good idea. That feels like the kind of thing a sex therapist would tell you to do, you know? And it's something that I've been like kind of considering, but it's just such a weird thing because if I join any of her servers, she'll know it's me, but she has guaranteed that, it would be very private. I'd make a channel for you that only you guys could get into. And I'm like, okay, but it's still something I'm not sure about. It just feels a little weird, you know, and I would have to get Owen convinced to do it. And I don't know if he would. So I've been sort of cycling that around in my brain because it just seems like a fun idea. So anyway, that's how things wrap up with the two of them, is them like confessing to each other what their issues are. And I don't think we see Lily successfully have sex. I'm not sure if like the talk makes her realize that she wants to have sex for the wrong reasons and she decides that she would chill about it, or I don't remember. We don't see her having sex after this, do we? But we do see Otis going home and jerking off after kissing Ola, and successfully jerking off, which we don't get to the actual orgasm. We get to like just before, and then we cut to credits, which I actually thought was really funny. But it's such a weird thing where I'm like, good for you, Otis, and also Ola deserves better. The scene where he apologizes to her at her work, guys. This old lady who tells him it's not cute and then smacks him with her cane was the MVP. I loved her the most because look, I don't like cornering somebody. I don't like coming to a woman's job. I know it wasn't intended this way, and I honestly don't even really take it this way, but I can't not address that aspect of it. This is something that dudes do when they are intent on talking to someone who has made it clear they're not interested in hearing from that person. Showing up at a woman's job is like stalker/toxic boyfriend 101. She's avoiding your texts. She's not taking your calls. Go to her office. Go to the bar she works at. Just go somewhere that you know she'll be, where she can't get away without getting in trouble. And it's so like, you know, I understand. And I just feel like I don't like the behavior. And then she winds up giving him a second chance after all. What I really wanted was her to be like, look, I understand. And you know what? We're cool. I will be friends with you, but clearly you're into her. I am not going to play this role. And I still feel really weird about you talking to me like that. And I don't know. You know, I just wanted her to like forgive him without letting him get what he wants, really. And because if I were her, I would be much more preoccupied with the way he talked about Maeve than I would be about me. Like, you insult me, and that sucks. And I realize, like, you don't respect me the way I would like for a partner to respect me, and I'm out. Like, but I can't get back with somebody because they convinced me they do respect me after all, when the premise of them telling me what hurt my feelings was in comparison to a woman that they called unattainable. Like, that just to me, they told you loud and clear, I'm only not with her because I can't be. That's the sole reason, it's not, I don't know. I would just be, I don't think I would ever be able to be cool around her. And I want Ola to be able to be cool around Maeve. I don't want Ola to be like the jealous one. I really do like the fact that even with what was going on with Jackson and Maeve, Jackson never turns into the jealous one. He's aware that she's into Otis. He's trying to just be chill. And he never takes it out on Otis. I wouldn't, like, you could say, depending on your interpretation, that he was taking it out on Otis at the party when he's, like, outed what Otis did. But I really felt like that was drunk Jackson, not malicious Jackson. I could be wrong. But I really think it was drunk Jackson. And so it just doesn't feel like there was that petty jealousy thing. It was more like an awareness of your partner and being like, oh, shit, I see what's going on here. And I'm really hoping that if he and Ola, like, have a thing that goes on for a few episodes where they're also near Maeve, that we don't have to watch Ola be weird because she's threatened by Maeve. She should be threatened by Maeve, as we know. But I don't want to see that be what Ola becomes. So that's really my concern here, and I just don't like that isn't addressed. She's taking the apology for his insulting her, but the implications of the insult are just sort of set aside, and that makes me nervous. So, is there somebody that I have forgotten? I feel like I've talked about everybody pretty much. But I really did like this finale. I thought it ended well with nice sort of wraps for each character. I am dying for Eric to tell Otis what happened. I understand why it's not just Adam being like, I'll fucking end you. But also, like, that's a very private thing. He would be outing Adam to somebody, and I really don't think Eric would want to be responsible for that. That said, now that Adam is taken away to military school, will he be willing to tell Otis finally? Because it's different when the person isn't around for you to, like, make a slip and say something and to get back to their family and life be ruined for them. Like, he isn't at home, and probably things wouldn't Otis wouldn't talk about it with anybody else because Adam isn't around. He would just talk about it with Eric. I don't know though. Like, I want Eric to tell him. I understand respecting Adam's privacy, but I want Eric to tell Otis. So we'll see. I feel like there was another thing that I had forgotten about. What happened? I'm realizing now I didn't talk about exactly where Maeve's brother went. What is his name? Sean? Is it Sean? He is gone by the time she gets home. And he had given a message to her landlady, but to tell her to, like, stop hanging out with nerds who talk about quantum physics and shit. But I couldn't tell if he had, like, really truly bailed on her again, or if this was part of him going to be a doorman and save up, because he talks about them doing that together, that, like, they could get their shit together. And he seems to be sincere when he says it, but there's a feeling of, like, that would be nice from her, where it's very non-committal. Like, I don't know if she believes that would ever happen. And I can't tell from, maybe I should go and find the scene, because I have the episode open, from the way that she reacts, what she thinks happened there. Trying to find it. Because, yeah, oh, here we go. So, oh, no, that's Otis that she's talking about. That he dropped this off for you. Skinny, sickly looking fella. And he had some really interesting thoughts about me and Jeffrey's marital problems. And, oh yeah, have you seen my brother? Oh yeah, he told me to pass something on to you. Tell Maeve to stop hanging around with a bunch of geeks doing talking about astrophysics and shit. Something like that. Did he tell you where he was going? Or said he was doing some shopping, but he had a big bag with him. What does that mean? What does that mean? He was doing some shopping, but that he had a big bag with him. Huh. Or is she saying he said he was doing some shopping, but he had a big bag with him? Because it looks like it's all one quote. Okay, I see. I totally misunderstood it. So I was thinking that was part of his message to her. And I was like, what is that? I thought that was like code. Oh man. So he just fucked off. I don't know. Maybe he'll be back. He had a big bag with him. I would like it if he wasn't leaving. Like if he had a bag of something that he was selling and it turned out that it wasn't what it looked like. I don't know. It's just such a bummer. I hope that it's not true. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. But at the same time, people just are like that. They make promises and then they just let you down. Like I have been lucky in not having a ton of experiences like that. But I have known a lot of people who have like a ton. And that would be more realistic than otherwise, unfortunately. So, you know, I kind of would appreciate in a way the show being like, people don't just get happy endings where their family turns a corner and just decides to be good to you. Like that's not often how it goes down. Dion says, Maeve is so let down by her family. I feel so bad for her and her loneliness. She just needs family to hang about and care enough to stick around no matter how useless. Yeah. And that's why I really like the ending with her and Amy. That's what she needs. She needs a friend, not somebody who's romantic, who is looking for something from her. Because that's kind of like Jackson popped into her life and it became all about Jackson, you know? And he saw her as a support for him. And like, granted, he needs support. He does. Like, he's right to feel angry about things the way that he does. But at one point she says for him to shut up, that at least they care. And I just felt really bad because like, it definitely makes sense that she feels that way. But what he's talking about is like, I mean, he has an eating disorder. Like it's not a big deal. And yet dudes always go to women for their emotional support and almost always a romantic partner. And so I really do appreciate her being like, this is too much. You just like moved in with me. Like we can't, you know? So I have mixed feelings on it, but I think in the end, I do kind of like it. And her and Amy, it's just much more of an even footing. There isn't like a power imbalance. I feel like she can confide in Amy in a way that's probably going to be different than with a lot. Like her and Amy already seemed like they talked about everything together. I like it. I think this is a good start. And hopefully Maeve will be able to like actually let her in as a friend, you know. I'm over time, so I'm going to wrap. But thank you again to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode and to all of you for coming and hanging out. And I will be seeing you again soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.